You know, this is actually my first real grade. No particular reason I didn't get them before, aside from I generally don't like how they look. But you know, there's a few exceptions to that rule, like the Red Frame and Gal Geiger. Hello and welcome back to another Gunpla review. Today we're taking a look at the real grade Astray Red Frame. Alright, and getting into the articulation. It may take a little while. The head is on a ball joint, though you're really not getting it turned more than that, just because it sort of clashes against these spikes here. Not a big deal. There's a hinge at the bottom of the neck. You can go back that far, which is nice, and can look pretty far down. I will say the ball joint on mine has a bit of a weird thing where it snaps the head back into place, as you can see. Not really sure how I'm going to be able to fix that. I might just sand it down a little bit. The shoulders are on a forward back hinge as well as an upwards hinge, and this little piece is free floating in here. The shoulder armor itself is on a little clip piece like 30-minute missions kits, and a hinge separately from the actual shoulder, so it has no problems getting completely out of the way of the arm. The shoulder joint itself is pretty tight, but can go out all the way for a full 90-degree bend separate from the rest of the joints. Let's bring that back in. That doesn't sound good, does it? And you have a very, very tight rotation at the bicep. I'm very worried about this because it's using a pre-molded frame. Then you get a double jointed bend at the elbow, which doesn't look like it goes that far, but then there's another joint in the actual forearm itself that lets it come up into a full bend. And I have the articulated hands on here because it made sense. Ball joint at the wrist, as always, and there's a hinge in the hand itself. Then the thumb has a ball joint and a bend right there. And then there's a ball joint for the trigger finger as well as a hinge. And then a ball joint and a hinge for the other three fingers. All the other hands it comes with are fixed bows and just have the ball joint. Then moving on to the waist, you get a little bit of a rock side to side, and you're supposed to get a bit of a bend forward and back, but just because of this, you're not getting much. And then with the backpack, it can hinge down, which is interesting, but these are on swivels, so it will come off if you start swiveling it. Then there's a swivel at the waist, as well as a more of an actual hinge joint, though you get a bit of a gap going right through the hips, as you can see when you do this, but you know, it's mostly for this kind of pose, so you're not going to see that anyway. Also, when you free that up, this is actually on a little hinge. Normally it's trapped by this piece. These side skirts are on a forward back hinge, as well as a rotation in there, though they're so small it's kind of hard for me to actually show it off. And then a little hinge for the actual skirt itself. And the front skirts are on separate ball joints, though again, they're so small it's kind of hard to show it off properly. The hips are just universal joints, though they really have no problem getting a full kick, front, back, or out to the side. Then there's a thigh swivel, which is a little bit loose on both the legs on mine, but it's not a big deal. It's not really something that needs to be super tight anyway. Then you get the beautiful and very tight double knee bend, which shifts a bunch of stuff. There we go. And yeah, it gets a full bend there and shifts down the knee. Puts a little crack in here. And just, it looks really, really good. I'll bring it back up so you can see the mechanism working there. And it clicks into place at the top because, yeah, pre-molded frame. There's a shifting piece in the ankle which shifts this centerpiece up and down, which is actually exposed frame. And then there's a ball joint in there which is really, really tight, as well as a side pivot, and then two joints in the feet, though this one is the one you get most of the movement out of. There's a little bit of a toe wiggle, but yeah, it's just that. So, of course, it's a real grade. The articulation is amazing. Alright, and moving on to accessories. Let's start off with this enormous sticker sheet. As you can see, I didn't use any of them, but you know, I was tempted to use the metallic green, but I decided against it. It's really up to you whether you want to use these. I personally really like how this looks clean, but you know, some people prefer really busy decal designs. Also, you do get a few, you know, just variants of just plain or with his signature on them, which is nice, and an absolute ton of metallic. Unfortunately, these are the you know, clear back ones that don't really stick super well, but it's included. And as for color correction, the only thing that is missing on this whole thing is the cameras on the backpack, which I just did with Gundam marker. I was tempted to do the eyes, but honestly the translucent green looks pretty good without it, so I just left them. Oh, and of course the black around the cameras on the head. Both these ones up here and the eyes, but that's not a huge deal. Now, getting into accessories proper, obviously I already showed off the posable hands, but you do get 6 more. I am very happy to get this many hands. I will point out though, they are only like 2 to 3 parts each, so I painted them. The white on the hand, aside from the back cap is actually a separate piece, but it's just the back cap and then red, so the white on the fingers and the palm is painted with the Gundam Marker EX White, which I'll be reviewing separately. But yeah, technically this isn't color correction because they show them as red on the box and in the instructions. So it's just, you know, the articulated hands had to be multicolored for the sake of the matching the frame, you know, the red frame and just how it works. But, you know, if you want them to be consistent, a little bit of paint. Anyway, you get 2 closed fists, 2 holding hands, which have little peg holes in them, a left splayed dynamic hand, which is doing a pose that the articulated ones can't pull off, so there is actually reason to use it, as well as a trigger finger hand, kind of doing a pose that the articulated hand can't pull off, though it can almost do it. This is mostly just to be more secure. Oh, what's that? What can be held in those hands? Well, I'm glad you asked. First up, we have the beam rifle, which has a little separate piece for the scope in there. Again, didn't paint it, didn't feel necessary. And this is pretty much just like 5-6 parts. It's not much more than a high grade. It does have a movable secondary handle, which is nice. And this has a big, thick tab on the side of it, and that's what the trigger finger hand's for. Then we have not 1 but 2 separate beam sabers with tabs. Now you do get the ones on the backpack which don't have them, and they are compatible with these beam effects. But these ones are specifically so you can have them really held tightly and solidly in the hand. Also, I do want to take a moment to point out these beam effects look amazing. There's a lot of detail in there and they are flat. Then we have the shield, which is nothing really special, fully color separated. It's literally just the strike's shield. Movable handle, ball joint in here, hinge, peg for the back of the arm. Holds it pretty well, honestly. It's not really much to say about it. This pretty much holds it completely securely. You don't even need the handle, but it's nice to have. And really my only complaint is this probably should have just been 2 parts on this runner, because I kind of feel like the red and white looks weird. Then again, I feel like the whole inside of this probably could have been gray if they wanted to, but honestly the white doesn't look bad, so whatever. Then we have, and I'm leaving it in this bag because I really don't want to lose it, a little 1/44th scale pilot figure. And yeah, this was a lot of fun to paint. I didn't record painting this because, yeah, if you want to see me paint a pilot figure this small, go watch it when I painted the gun tank pilot inside the cockpit there. But yeah, this is a nice little 1/44 scale Lao, which has him holding his briefcase over his shoulder in a really uncomfortable pose, but it looks cool, so whatever. Also, yeah, this, I don't think you fully understand how tiny this is. This is really, really small. Do not lose it. There is also the gimmick of the opening cockpit hatch, and you can kind of see it's honestly hard to get a light in there to show it, but it is a fully detailed cockpit. You might want to paint it, but honestly, I don't really care. I think the red looks fine. And then, technically, the final accessory, those is a few little additional parts that we'll go over quickly, is the Gundam Astray, his massive mobile suit katana. I did use gold Gundam marker on the gold parts, though they are color separated. I just don't really like the color gold they went with. Should have been the Hyakishiki gold, but they went with like the more mac and cheese one. Not a big deal. All the red and the white, and like I said, everything's color separated. You get a really nice, well-detailed hilt there. I mean, the end of this looks amazing. And then, be very careful with this. If I pull it gently until it lets go, there we go. A chrome-plated blade. And I forgot to take a picture to show it off, but inside the hilt, the blade actually goes in realistically and has the kanji on it for the sword maker. It's a really nice detail. I really should have took a picture of that thinking of it. But yeah, this is beautiful. It even has the, I don't know if it'll even come up on camera, but it actually has the wave in the metal. Like an actual, yeah, it's showing up. Like an actual katana blade. They went out of their way to specifically get that in there, because it's on both sides. It's not like a mistake or anything. They actually added that to the blade. It looks amazing. This is one of the best looking accessories I've ever seen for a kit. And I'm going to put that back in, again, very gently, because it's chrome-plated plastic, which means it's fragile. And I've heard nightmare stories about this thing breaking off, so, you know, be gentle with it. Finally, those couple little additional parts is this little one, which clips onto the side skirt if you want to have the katana attached on a little bit higher up. There's already ones on the thigh. This is really just for one specific pose and nothing else. Also, it really doesn't like to stay on. This falls off so easily that honestly I'd recommend just plugging it into the thigh and forgetting about it. It's not really worth using. But something that is worth using is an action-based adapter, which just slides onto the crotch and has both a square hole and a 3mm peg, so you can literally put this up on whatever stand you want. And I just realized I forgot to take the nub off of it, but that's not a big deal. And as for a quick size comparison, it's a real grade, so 144 scale, which means it's the same size as, honestly, it's pretty much the same size as the RX-78. It's not very tall. So, to wrap this review up, I'm impressed with my first real grade, though at the same time I'm a little bit underwhelmed. I was expecting a lot more small parts, and this is kind of just like building 1.5 high grades. It's not. I'm slightly disappointed, but it's not in the actual kit. It's more just my expectations were a little bit high. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with this kit. I'm a little bit concerned about the pre-molded frame getting a little loose over time, but hey, I'm just putting this on my shelf after the review and never touching it again, so I'm sure that won't be a problem for me. Pretty much perfect color separation, aside from the closed hands, but that's not actually something that's mentioned anyway, so it doesn't actually matter. Goes with all the accessories you'd want. The Gundam Astray looks amazing, and this is one of the few real grades where I think the two-tone actually works really well. If you're interested in picking this up, I think it's worth your while. Anyway, that's all for this review. Be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, helps a lot. Subscribe and hit the bell for future reviews. So follow me on Twitter for updates, and consider supporting me on Patreon so I can keep making reviews just like this one. And as always, till next time, happy building.